everybody. I'm registered dietitian Jacqueline Gomes with Foodtown Stores. Thank you so much for attending today, signing up, being here. If you're watching this on the replay, I hope that you really enjoy it. So today's topic is filling up on fiber. So all of our recipes will be excellent sources of fiber. And, fiber plays many roles within our health, and it wears many hats. Most people do associate fiber with digestive health, and that absolutely is true. But fiber serves so many more purposes in our physiological functioning day to day, in particular with hormone regulation. So fiber keeps us fuller for a longer period of time. And so what fiber is it's simply a non-digestible carbohydrate. So our body can't recognize fiber and break it down for energy. So it passes right through our digestive system undigested, and it helps to not only keep our microbiome healthy, so it keeps those healthy bacteria, or a good balance of the bacteria in our digestive system, but it can also help to regulate blood sugar because it passes slowly through our digestive tract, and it can help slow down the digestion of, let's say, carbohydrate and proteins. So it really is just should be a wonderful part of our diet. The problem is that most Americans consume around 15 grams of fiber a day on average, and the recommended amount for most adults is 25 grams. And you may have more depending on if you have like any in particular conditions, like let's say for my folks that I counsel that maybe want to reduce body weight or managing blood sugar, depending on how much they're consuming, I may recommend a bit more, like 30, 35. So, and it also depends on how you tolerate it as well, right? So that's all about fiber really quickly. So we have a lot of ground to cover today. I got really excited about the topic and I decided on 4 recipes. I usually only do 3, so we may need the full hour, but I do try to get you guys out as quickly as possible so that you can get the information, get what you need, and of course, move on with your day. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, comments, anything that you would like to share, please put it in the chat. I will check the chat periodically, like while something's cooking or while we're waiting on something. I like to go into the chat and just have a brief conversation with you guys. So feel free to do that. All right. So we're going to work backwards. We're going to start with dessert today, and that's because it's going to go into the oven for about 20 minutes. And so I want to make sure that you get to see that before the class is over. So we are going to start with, drum roll please, brownies. And the magic ingredient in our brownies is black beans. Now, before you scrunch your forehead over this, I promise you, I'm telling you, you cannot taste the black beans in this recipe. I've tried it on my children without letting them know what it was. I tested it on my husband and just here's a brownie, ate it and was like, oh yeah, these are good. And then when I told him there were black beans in them, he was like, what? No way. There's no way I would ever know that. This particular recipe is great because it's naturally gluten-free. It is vegan as well. There are no eggs in this recipe. It's just black beans, oats, and we'll make it now. The other thing that I love about it is that everything goes right into this food processor. So there's really not a lot of mess or cleanup that goes into this recipe. So let's get started. So, while I'm talking today, feel free to drop in the chat why you decided to attend this class, if fiber is something that you're curious about, or something that is part of your diet, or maybe an area that you struggle with. So we're using just a basic kind of like brownie pan or baking dish, like 8x8. You could go 9x9, but I think 8x8 works. One little trick, if you probably already know, if you're ever using parchment paper, just spray the bottom of your pan so that your parchment paper sticks. And that way it's not like willy-nilly flying around. So now it sticks in there and we can pour our batter without any issues. I'm also just going to lightly spray the sides so that our brownies, of course, don't stick. Okay, so we'll set that aside. All right, so our famous ingredient, of course, are black beans. I'm just using a 15.5 ounce can. Now, anytime you're working with beans, now beans are a fabulous source of fiber, like a fabulous. But you always want to make sure you're rinsing them, especially if you're using canned beans, because they do have like that weird kind of solution that they sit in, and rinsing them also helps to remove some of that extra sodium if that is a concern for you. They also just taste better, right? So they definitely taste better when you rinse them and you get that gooky stuff off. So I'm just rinsing them over here in this side sink, and then we're gonna pop them right into our food processor. All right. Perfect. So I just wanna shake off the excess and get them in here. Okay. All right, so those are our black beans. We're gonna do 2 tablespoons of all natural cocoa powder. If you like chocolate, you're in luck, because all natural cocoa powder, or really dark chocolate, is full of antioxidants known as flavonoids. So they definitely do have a health purpose. So we can call these our healthy brownies if we like, right? So we'll toss that in there, and then we're gonna be doing a 1/2 cup of quick oats. I'm just using our brand, the Greenway brand, organic oats, and we're just gonna go in with a 1/2 cup right in there. 1/4 teaspoon of salt, because we're baking, right? So we need these kinds of things in here. Salt, our sweetener is gonna be honey. You could also substitute maple syrup, would work just fine in here. If I could open this thing, why am I not? Oh, here we go. So honey always takes a minute to come out. So you know what? Let's use the new one. There we go. And that way we won't be waiting here. I do see something in the chat. Just give me 1 minute to pop in there and check it out. All right. This also does call for, in the recipe that I send you, it'll say vegetable oil. My personal preference here is just any oil that, you know, you feel comfortable using. I'm going to be using an avocado oil, because it is basically a flavorless oil. You could use like an olive oil I've seen people use in baking. They do that quite a bit in Europe. But you could also use, if you're more of a canola type of baker, you know, that would be fine too. So any oil that makes you happy, it's gonna work there. And I didn't know about the rinsing. Oh, good. Yes. So that's perfect. Oh, that's Scott. Hey, thank you for attending. Okay, 1/4 cup of oil. So we're gonna use the avocado oil. We just need a 1/4 cup here. I know this thing it'll be a miracle if I don't spill this today, because it's such a big container. So 1/4 cup, okay. And put that in there. And then we need our baking powder, because we are baking, of course. I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of that. All right, so let's give this puppy a spin. Now, I will warn you, it's gonna take a minute, because we want the oats to really get as ground up as possible. So just bear with me. So after we do this step, I know you might not be able to hear me, but we're just gonna stir in some chocolate chips. We're gonna put it right into our pan, and it goes in a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. I know everybody's oven is kind of like does its own thing. When I've made these twice before, and I need a little over 15 minutes. So we'll set the timer for 15 and then see how it goes. All right, there we go. Looks good. Okay, so, oh, it smells so nice. All right. So then what we're gonna do is, I think I'm gonna take this out so I can stir in our chips. All right, this is the tricky part, right? Let's just get rid of this, because we want to make sure we maximize all of this. Okay, there we go. Now I just have a half a cup of Lily's baking chocolate chips. If you're not familiar with them, they're a here, let me show them to you. They're a no sugar added brand, which is why I like them. And these are the dark style. These are these are my favorite, I have to say. I try not to be like too favorite-y about brands, but that one, they're really good. I do enjoy them. Okay, so that's it. So we mixed in our chocolate chips. Our batter is just gonna go right in here, super simple. All right, okay. And then what you could do if you want is top it with a few more chocolate chips. If you just kind of, want a little something extra, that would be totally fine. I know for my kids, they always go for the one, like if you cut them into pieces. So I think this makes 12, yeah, 12 brownies is the serving size. So they always look for the ones that have like the chocolate chips. So you have to make sure that you spread them out evenly, right? Otherwise, you want to make sure everybody gets what they want. So there we go. All right, so in the oven it goes at 350, and we'll chat about this in a minute here while I'm cleaning up. Okay, so while we're cleaning up, I'll chat a little bit about the nutrition. I just want to get our cooktop warming up here, because we're going to be moving on to our next recipe as we chit chat. Okay, so each brownie, this particular recipe is for 12 brownies, and they're probably about that big if I had to guess. Each brownie is 126 calories and 6.5 grams of fiber. Now that is really significant, so I want to give you some perspective on this. So most brownies would have 0 grams of fiber. But what is considered an excellent source of fiber is a serving that's 5 grams of fiber or more. So all of our recipes today will fall into that category of more than 5 grams of fiber. So that's really good. It's really significant. They're filling, they're delicious, and all that good stuff, okay? So we'll let those bake. Let me set a timer so I don't forget about them, because I will forget about them if we don't do that. And let me just move a couple things over so that we can move on to our next recipe. Any questions on that? Anybody heard of black bean brownies before? Is this something new to you? Is it not? I'd love to know. And please tell me, please tell me. All right. So our next recipe involves cooking. A little bit of cooking here. So I just want to make some room. Let's start warming up our pan. Oh, actually, no, this goes in the oven, actually. So that's next. So here we go. All right, so how long in the oven? About 15 to 20 minutes. And I used a half a cup of honey, okay? The honey, I wouldn't say is super like so the reason why we add sweeteners to baking products is obviously we want a sweetness. Sometimes it really serves a structural part of that recipe, meaning you can't play around with it too much or the integrity of that baked good will kind of fall apart. The first time I made them, I really didn't use a full cup of honey. I used a little bit less, maybe like a little over a quarter, and it still came out really good. So if you wanted to cut back a little bit on that sweetness, you certainly could. But to give you an interesting tip on maple syrup, I read a study recently that showed that maple syrup in particular does not have a very strong glycemic response, which is really interesting, meaning it doesn't spike blood sugar the same way that like regular table sugar would. So just something to keep in mind. All right, so our next recipe for today is going to be an edamame and veggie rice bowl. So this, I think, is such a great meal for like a quick lunch or even a make-ahead lunch. Certainly would work well for dinner, but this is something that I eat quite frequently for lunch because I find it really easy and I can incorporate some leftover veggies. So what we're going to do is we are going to first roast some zucchini and bell peppers. So we're going to get those cut up. So this zucchini for one person is a bit much. So I think we're just gonna maybe use a quarter of it. I think that would be plenty. You can peel it if you like. If you like the skin on, you can do that as well. So this is a great option for someone who is looking for a more plant-based way of eating, someone who follows a vegetarian diet, someone who doesn't follow a vegetarian diet, right? I don't follow a vegetarian diet, but I do love eating plant-based meals. And so this is a really nice one. The protein in this particular recipe is going to be coming from edamame. So edamame is a complete protein, and you may be familiar with it if you're someone who enjoys Asian cuisine or going out for sushi or something like that. It's always a popular appetizer, and typically they serve it in the pods. What we're going to be using today is the shelled version, so that it's a lot easier to put this together. So this really becomes a super quick meal. If you have your veggies made ahead of time, then of course it becomes like a 5-minute solution. But if we're going to be prepping some of our veggies, then, it takes just a little bit more time. All right, so in a baking sheet, I'm just adding our zucchini and some red bell pepper. You can substitute other peppers if you'd like. We're just going to sprinkle just a little bit of olive oil. We really don't need much. And just a little bit of salt. And then we're going to pop that in the oven. Really, this probably only needs like 10 minutes or so. So let's pop that in. Okay. Okay. So while that's cooking up, we are going to be chopping up some parsley, or I'm sorry, cilantro. You can also, if you're not a cilantro fan, you could use different herbs, but because this has more of like a, what's the word I want to use? Like the flavor should be a little bit more elevated. I feel like cilantro is a better bet. So if you like it, not everyone is a fan of cilantro. I have met people who are like, oh, it's so peppery, I don't like it. And that's okay. You can substitute something else. We're also going to be topping it with scallions. So, or green onions. I know some people like to refer to them as green onions. I'm in the scallion camp. Be interested to hear where you guys are with these guys. Okay. All right, we'll just set that aside. Okay, now to fix our bowl is really simple. I'm using a jasmine rice. Of course, I've already prepared this ahead of time because no one wants to sit here and watch rice boil. You could use brown rice, you could use quinoa, farro, you can use any type of single grain that you like or enjoy. I like the idea of jasmine rice in this particular recipe. We seem to enjoy this rice in my household. So you could also, there's so many solutions in the grocery stores now. I mean, rice is so easy to make. It's 15 minutes. It's not a big deal. And you kind of like set it and forget it. But if you are someone who is in a pinch, you are always in a rush. I know this works well for families. You can make the like the steamable rice. It comes like in a pouch. I've also seen them in like little cups where you just pop it in the microwave for a minute and you have rice, so that's certainly an option. And, there's certainly nothing wrong with that if you want to go down that route. But typically what I do at home is I'll make, if I feel like we're having, rice for some of the starches during the week, I'll just make a batch of it on a Sunday, pop it in the fridge. It can hang there for like 3-ish, 4-ish days. Or you can put it in the freezer and just take it out of the freezer as you need it. So that's an easy way, to go about having some meal prep. All right, so we have our rice in the bowl. Now our edamame, I'm just using about a quarter of a cup. You can use more, depending on what your nutritional needs are. So that looks really pretty already. And we're just gonna wait on our other vegetables, okay? So while that's going on, so when you get the recipe, it does call for a citrus lime vinaigrette. You can purchase one in this grocery store or you can make one on your own. I'm just gonna do a little bit of lemon juice with a little bit of olive oil. If you want a more of like an Asian flair, you could go for like a sesame oil, which will add a really nice flavor as well. So you can just do that right away. And I'm just gonna put that right on top there. Okay, and that gives it a little bit of acidity that it needs, okay? All right, so this recipe, it makes one serving when you get it, so it's 394 calories and 9 grams of fiber. So 9 grams of fiber is a really nice sweet spot for a meal. So this should be really delicious for you, okay? Excuse me one second. Let me just grab some water. Okay, so we have about 7 minutes left on our brownies. Okay. So while our veggies are cooking up, we're gonna move on. I just want to see if you can see it. Yep. We're gonna move on to our next recipe. So we are doing a breakfast this time. So this might actually be a little heavy, so use that there. Okay, there we go. Okay. So don't forget about lunch yet. We're coming back to it, okay? So we're going to now move forward with breakfast. Now, this breakfast is a play on overnight oats. I have found that many people love overnight oats for the convenience. It's super tasty and very filling, and of course, it can be a super nutritious breakfast. But a lot of times where it falls short is either it doesn't have enough protein or the oats are like the only source of the fiber. And so you're just not getting enough traction from that, from that meal. But we can elevate it by switching out the oats. Not that overnight oats is not good. I eat overnight oats all the time, but we're just going to use quinoa, which is going to add another level of protein and fiber to this meal, as well as chia seeds, which provide fiber, healthy fats, and protein. If you're not using chia seeds in your recipes, you're missing out. They're a wonderful little food. And then, of course, we are going to be topping it off with some fresh berries, okay? So let's dive into this right away. So you can, now I don't know if any of you have these like little mason jars. These work awesome for these types of make ahead breakfast, but you could easily just use a bowl. That would be completely fine. But because I had this on hand and I just love the convenience of it because you put the top on it and you pop it in the fridge and then you wake up in the morning and breakfast is ready to go. So in here, we're going to be putting in our cooled quinoa. You don't want to use hot quinoa because we're going to be adding some kefir, which is a strong a strong source of probiotics. So this has like a very gut healthy kind of feel, I think, this cooking class. So you're really getting a lot of benefit, from this particular breakfast. So we're going to put the quinoa into the bottom of our bowl here. Just lower this heat here. So that's next. All right, so we're using about 1 cup of cooked quinoa. So that sounds about good right there. Set this aside. We're using 3/4 of a cup of kefir. Now I'm using a strawberry kefir. You could use a plain kefir. Now what the heck is kefir? So kefir is just simply a liquidy yogurt to a degree. So it's a cultured milk product, a very excellent source of probiotic. So if you haven't tried it, it is a little bit more, I guess, sour, I think is the best term to use for it. It's not really overly sweet. It would be very similar to just consuming like a plain yogurt. I think that's the best way I can see it. But as you'll see, it's very liquidy, right? So we're gonna pour that in. Okay. I'm also going to be adding a tablespoon of our chia seeds in here. Now, chia seeds need a minute to gel up, okay? So chia seeds can absorb 12 times their weight in liquid. So it really, I mean, you can eat it right away. There's no law saying you can't. But for this to really develop, it turns into almost like a thick pudding type consistency. You want the chia seeds to really absorb a lot of that liquid. Can Greek yogurt be substituted for kefir? Yeah, for sure. You could definitely substitute a Greek yogurt. In fact, when I make overnight oats, I typically just use a Greek yogurt. So that's a great question, and you can absolutely do that. All right, so then we're gonna be adding just a little bit of vanilla extract, a quarter teaspoon. Where's my quarter teaspoon? Here. All right. If you want this to be sweetened up, you can add a little bit of maple syrup, but this is completely optional. Not something you absolutely have to do. Okay, I'm just gonna do like 1 teaspoon. That should be plenty sweet in here. All right, perfect. Okay, now we're gonna give this a mix. Right. Okay, now, while we hang out, you're gonna see how this is going to like grow. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't think grow is the right word, but these chia seeds are gonna start absorbing some of this liquid. So typically you want this to kind of hang out overnight, but you'll be surprised that even just a few minutes will make a big difference. All right, so we're gonna cover that up. And the last thing we'll do is put our berries in it and enjoy it. It's really, really simple. So this breakfast, I think I already mentioned, has 9 grams of dietary fiber, which is really excellent. And it's right around 394 calories. So right in that 400 calorie mark, which seems to be like a sweet spot, I would say for most women. Everybody's nutritional needs are different. So we can't generalize and say, oh, this works well for everybody, because fitness matters. Where you are with your health matters, what the rest of your diet, looks like matters. But in my experience, I have found that most women do well with around a 400 calorie meal. Men a bit more, maybe like 5, sometimes 600, depending on their stature. Of course, that makes a big difference as well. Okay. Let me know what questions you have. I want to finish up our rice bowl now. All right, so that's our breakfast. We'll move this over since we're done with you guys. Okay. Oh, I forgot my cinnamon. That's okay. We can add that back in. I love cinnamon. Cinnamon is also a great source of antioxidants and has been studied well in managing blood sugar. So if you're someone who has maybe insulin resistance or kind of like the beginning stages of like pre-diabetes, or maybe your blood sugars are a little off, add some cinnamon. There's some studies to support that it can be beneficial, but remember, the rest of your lifestyle does really matter as well. So let's grab our veggies and let's finish up our bowl. Oh, they look great. They smell wonderful. So there are our veggies. And we're gonna check on our brownies as well. Oh no, definitely. So we're gonna do a little bit more time on our brownies. I'd say 5 more minutes. Okay, cool. So you may be, I don't know, depending on where you are, you may be like, wow, that's a lot of veggies for one person. No, it's not. Veggies are good for you. So I would say, anytime I'm working with someone and we talk about how many vegetables they should be consuming, I really always say like as many as you can tolerate, but really around like 2 cups per meal. So like 2 cups at lunch, 2 cups at dinner. I think it's good, a good amount of vegetables. And that's assuming that we're also having fruit, in there as well. Vegetables are, of course, we know them to be good for us, but why? So their fiber source plays a really critical role in establishing our healthy microbiome. So you might have heard this term floating around media. Oh, microbiome, what is this? There's just like a lot of research going around now in this area. And we're finding that to have a well-established microbiome, so we have a healthy balance of good bacteria to bad bacteria, which by the way affects our immunity and our whole general health, we need to consume around 30 different plant-based foods a week, okay? So that includes vegetables, fruits, beans, legumes, whole grains. Those are nuts, seeds. Those are all plant-based foods, okay? All right, so look at how nice this looks. Let's finish it off with our greens. And who wouldn't want, I hope you would want to eat that. Doesn't that look delicious? It's so colorful. Now, this is truly an anti-inflammatory, healthy meal, really that almost just about, unless you have a soy allergy, just about anybody can enjoy, okay? So that's meal number one. We'll put that to bed. That's our edamame and veggie rice bowl, okay? So now we are we're still waiting on our brownies. They were still a little loose when I checked on them. So we're gonna move on to our next recipe, which is a chicken sausage pasta bowl. I know, another bowl, but you can separate the ingredients if you like. So let me just grab this over here. Now this one is really enjoyable and super family friendly. So with this recipe, it's a kale sausage and red bell pepper pasta. This one does require some sauteing, so we're going to be putting that over here. Now with your chicken sausage, you can use whatever chicken sausage you like. There's so many brands out there. I'm just using the Amy Lou brand. It's just a garlic, roasted garlic version. But you could also, and this is pretty much like cooked through. It's just a matter of really warming it up. You could use a chicken sausage that is raw. You just need to cook it a little bit more, okay? So let's get started. So we're gonna take that out of the package and we're gonna cut this up. So you know what? I think I need a scissor to open this. It'll just be easier, unless you can open it like this. Oh yeah, we can. All right. So we're gonna put this, actually, it's just gonna take too long. Let me just use the scissor, it'll just be faster. There we go. All right. Anybody like using chicken sausage in their weekly meal rotation? I know it's not for everybody. I have one child that likes it, the other one doesn't. So when I make a chicken sausage dinner, I have to usually just prepare a different protein for him, which is fine. I usually always have some kind of protein cooked or ready to go in my refrigerator. So it's not that big a deal. All right. So there we go. All right. So you're just going to want to cut this into bite-sized pieces. All right. And we're just going to add a little bit of cooking spray to our pan. This recipe calls for kale. If you're not a kale person, you could substitute another leafy green. You could go for a spinach, which I think would be a really great alternative. Okay. Right. And we're just going to warm this through. Go. I'm going to start adding this in. Yeah, our pan is warm. So I'm just going to add a little bit of cooking spray to our pan. And we're going to go ahead and just warm up our sausage there. Okay. There we go. One more. So this recipe calls for about 8 ounces. This package was 9. I'll just leave it all to the side. Okay. So with that, we're going to cut up a bell pepper. I know you're probably like, oh, another red bell pepper. You can use whatever bell pepper you like. And I think it just happened to work out that way. But peppers are an excellent, rich source of antioxidants. They're very low in calories. So they're definitely a very friendly veg. Plus they have like a good staying power. They're just easy to kind of cut and manipulate. So they lend themselves well to different recipes. You could substitute a different veggie. So something like if you wanted to do something more hearty, you could do eggplant in here, a zucchini again. You could even do carrots, onions. I mean, sky's the limit. That's the wonderful thing about cooking is that, you don't have to limit yourself and put yourself in a box. You can vary the ingredients based on what you and your family enjoy most, okay? So here's my wooden spoon. All right, this looks, oh my God, this it smells so good. I gotta tell you. All right, so now that that's warmed through, we're just gonna add it to a bowl and then we're gonna add our bell pepper into this pan. Right. So now that's one through. And now our bell peppers go in here. There we go. I'm gonna add just a pinch of salt so that the moisture starts to release. Okay, perfect. So, all right, now I see a comment in here. Will you be sending? Oh, yes, of course. Oh, of course, you know it. So today after our class, you will get all of the recipes. I should have mentioned it beforehand, but I got so caught up in talking about fiber that I think I forgot. So you will get all of the recipes in a PDF format, and you'll get a copy of the recording. So you should be good to go with everything that you need for today's class. Okay, thank you for asking that. Let's check on our brownies. Yeah, now we're good. All right, so our brownies are set to go. Let me grab this so I can kind of turn it over. So here you go. We're gonna cut them, after they cool, because they are really quite warm right now. So we'll just set those aside and we'll let them cool and then we'll cut them. Okay, so back to our pepper situation over here. Now I have a couple cloves of garlic. I love garlic, so when I write a recipe, I try to keep in mind that not everyone likes as much garlic as I do. So I think I said 2 cloves of garlic. I'm using 3. I would probably tell you if you came over for dinner and I was just cooking for like myself and my family, I probably would have like enough garlic that fits in the palm of my hand because I love garlic, right? I just really enjoy it. So we've got our garlic in here. We've got our bell pepper cooking up. So then let's see what we're gonna do here. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, perfect. So I do like it a little, this dish kind of lends itself to something like a little bit spicy. So I'm gonna put just a little bit of crushed red pepper in here. If you don't like crushed red pepper, you can just leave it out. All right, now kale. So kale, we're gonna put it right into the pan and then we're gonna cover it so that it can quickly wilt. So I'm just gonna put that right into our pan. I love meals that it's one pan, it's one pot. It just makes life so much easier versus, actually, I think we're gonna use this, versus like having so many different things to clean up and deal with. So let's salt this. Otherwise, we're gonna have no flavor in here. All right. Now it's nice and quiet. Okay. All right. So I love garlic. Good, good. Yeah, that's terrific. So garlic is wonderful. And the pasta that I'm using today is just a penne. You can use any pasta you like. Like this would be nice with rigatoni or the bow ties, elbows. I mean, I would say like a short pasta would work well here. I probably wouldn't use like a spaghetti. It might be kind of weird because everything else is in bite-sized pieces. But I went ahead and cooked the pasta ahead of time because again, I don't need to show you how to make pasta. I'm sure you know how to make pasta. All right, so you could enjoy this as it's meant to be a warm dish, but you could enjoy it at room temperature if you really wanted to. So we're gonna throw this in here. This is 3 ounces of pasta. So this recipe would be appropriate for like 2 people or one like super, super hearty dish. Okay. And then I want to put in my sausage in here. Oh, that looks so good. All right. So let's check on our, you know what, I need tongs to kind of toss this around. All right. There we go. Now this cooktop does take a little while. It's not like your stove top that is faster or has more heat. So just be patient. If we have to move it to the back, we'll move it to the back. All right. All right. It's like so nice and quiet. All right. Does garlic retain more flavor if it's added at the beginning versus towards the end of cooking? Okay. So that's an interesting question. I'm trying to think of like how the best way to answer this because I feel like it has 2 different scenarios. So let's just say the cooking process of garlic. So garlic requires very little cooking time because it burns very quickly. So anytime you're cooking with garlic, you just want to be mindful of where in the cooking process you're going to be adding it to your dish. So for today's example, I started cooking the bell peppers first because they take longer. If I had added both at the same time, then my garlic probably would have burned before my bell pepper had a chance to really cook properly. Once you get it to where you want it to be, okay, so then let me answer the next thing, or towards the end. If you add it towards the end of cooking, depending on where you are in your cooking process, you may just get like a raw garlic flavor. So I'll give you an example. Let's say we did the bell pepper, we put the kale in there, and then we covered it and we're waiting for everything to kind of wilt and cook up. If I added the garlic at that time, then my garlic might just steam, because remember, we're covering it because we're looking for steam to wilt the kale. So you may not cook it properly enough. I'll stop there. Let me know if that's what you're asking. I just want to make sure that I'm answering your question appropriately and properly. But that's kind of how you want to think about it, when you're cooking with garlic. So I'm going to show this to you now, and you'll kind of get an idea of, what I'm talking about. So you can see that there's a lot of condensation in our cooktop, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get moisture in here so that everything starts to cook down. Because I've added moisture, nothing is going to burn in there. The only way it would burn is if I left the cooktop off, because all of the steam is coming out and the moisture doesn't have enough time to really hang out in there. So let me know if that answers your question, but you can kind of get a sense of what we're dealing with here, what this looks like. So you can see how everything's kind of wilted. Everything looks really good here. You can continue to cook it. You can leave it how it is, as long as it's, kale is definitely a rough leafy green. So I like to cook mine a little bit more. But if you like more of that bite, you can leave it just as it is. Okay. I love that question. And I hope that I answered it for you. Okay. So I'm just using a clear bowl because I want you to be able to see it. So now we're going to add our veggies into our bowl in here. Okay. So good. There we go. Perfect. And that's it. Such a delicious and healthy meal here. Now, of course, no pasta dish would be complete without a little Parmesan cheese. I'm using the shredded Parmesan because I just like that more than the grated. But just a little sprinkle is all you need. And you should be good to go. And that's it. Give that a little toss. And there you have a very healthy, high protein, high fiber meal. So the stats on this one were, let's see, this one is 463 calories, 30 grams of protein, which is kind of like, in my world of meal prep, that's kind of what I aim for at each meal. So I think that that's a good place to be. And our fiber is 8 grams. So another excellent source of fiber in this dish. So I know you had a chance to kind of see it, but I kind of like this more in like a flat dish. I just think it looks nicer. So there we go. Put it in a flat dish. So that, there we go. All right. So we've got our kale, sausage, and pasta meal. So there we have it. So we have 1, 2, we're going to do our brownies, and then we're going to check on our breakfast. All right. So I'm going to move this out so that my brownies don't taste like garlic. So let me just move this out of the way. All right. Yeah, this is good. All right. So we're going to, I just want to loosen this up a little bit. I thought I had a plate for this. Oh, here it is. All right. There we go. Huh, there we go. Move this over. All right, so of course we want to take our parchment paper off, and we're going to be cutting our brownies. They're still a little warm, but I want you to be able to see how chocolatey they really are, because they are still a little warm. I want to show you. All right, there we go. It's still a little too hot. I'm gonna like burn my fingers if I show you. Hang on, let me see if I can, let me turn them over. Let me just grab a dish here so that I can turn it over for you. Because they are really still warm. There we go. Okay. All right, so here are our brownies. They look like brownies. I know you can't taste them, but I promise you, they are amazing. They do not taste like black beans, but you get such an extra benefit from making them this way. Not that I would make them this way all the time, but I think that they're kind of like a fun thing to make when you just want something a little bit different. But, you know, for individuals who really do have different health concerns and you want something sweet, this is such an appropriate like little sweet treat or snack or dessert in lieu of something that is much higher sugar, much higher fat. And so this can really play a role in helping you to, you know, just eat things that are flavorful and delicious to you. Okay. All right. So let's check out our overnight oats back over here. So they can see they've really thickened up already. So let me just take this off. So we're just gonna add a little bit of cinnamon because I didn't do that earlier. And then for our berries, you're just gonna add them on top. So you can see that they're really nice and starting to really gel up. When you get them in the, so really this is meant to be at least a minimum 6 hour mark for getting them to thicken up. But you'll see it's like at when you do it and then you open them in the morning or however you decide to enjoy them, you'll see that they're very stiff. So if you want to add a little bit more kefir, or even I've had some people tell me, oh, I just add a little bit of water, mix it up, and you know, it's good to go. You know, so you could certainly do that as well. All right, so since I have chocolate on this, it's okay to add my berries in here because why not? So you're gonna add your berries. I'm using strawberries. I also have some really nice blueberries here, which are also really delicious. Really good. Perfect. And there you have it. Fabulous breakfast. Okay, high fiber. This one has a good amount of protein as well. Where is my recipe? This protein on this one was 18 grams. So 18 grams of protein for this is really, really good. You can potentially get more by using, someone in the chat mentioned a Greek yogurt. So depending on the brand, I've seen Greek yogurts with 25 grams of protein in 1 cup. So I think the company is Oikos that makes one like that. It's called like, high protein, I think it's Oikos that makes one like that. But also brands like Faye make high protein Greek yogurt. So just poke around for one that resonates with you and that you really enjoy if you want to switch out the kefir for a Greek yogurt. Okay. All right. So that's it for today. Right coming up on the 50-minute mark. So we have time for questions, anything that you might have missed, or any questions that you have around substitutions. Those are very common questions that I get during our cooking classes. Oh, I don't really like that. Can I use this instead? Or if you have an allergy or any other dietary restriction, you know, we can talk about how to make these recipes work for you. Or if you have questions around fiber or just general health, please let me know. We're here to chat it up. No additional questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for attending, everybody. Feel free to put the questions in the chat if you're kind of still thinking about it. So like I mentioned earlier, you'll get your recipes in your inbox later on this afternoon. and hopefully a recording as well if you wanted to rewatch this. And you'll also have my email. So if anything comes up after this class, feel free to respond to the email if you had any additional questions or anything that you wanted to share. Our next class is scheduled for October, so we do them once a month, and I hope to see you there. Thanks so much. Um, oops. I'm lactose intolerant, so can't have cream. So I use evaporated milk instead for cream soups. Oh, okay. That's a great comment. Yeah. So one thing that you may want to look into, I'm glad that you mentioned that, is the brand Faye, the yogurt brand Faye, they recently came out with a lactose-free line of Greek yogurts. So I know sometimes people will mix in like a dollop of Greek yogurt into soups to add a little creaminess. So you could potentially look into that to see if it's something that might work for you. I just discovered it a few weeks ago, so I tasted it and it tastes good. It's just a lactose-free Greek yogurt, so that's an option. But yes, you could definitely, substitute different things based on, what's going on with your health. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? All right, great. Well, thank you again for attending. I hope that you got something out of our class today, and I hope to see you guys in future classes. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody. I'm just going to close up now.